hating someone and deciding that you need to wipe them off the face of the earth. And when I look at what happened on October 7th, that's more than just hating. What's that about?
You know, there is lots of violence. And what Hamas did on October 7 was an attempt for ethnic cleansing. In fact, they succeeded in ethnically cleanse close to 20 Jewish communities. And this shows you their intention. You know, they want to dominate. This was a holy mission. It's a holy war. In Islam, to kill for Allah is a way of worship. This is the stuff that nobody likes to talk about.
Let's take a look at what you're describing in what some of these kids are trained to do at a very young age.
In Gaza and the West Bank, nearly 10,000 teachers and school administrators employed by UNRWA belong to Hamas-dominated unions, which call for the destruction of Israel. UNRWA is financing school curriculums that glorify terror and suicide bombing. Children are being inoculated with the belief that any and all means possible must be used to reclaim Palestine.
UNRWA students openly parade in the streets and call for Israel's destruction. All of this occurs in plain sight, within the watchful eye of UNRWA teachers. These students are between the ages of 8 and 10 and have already received military training.
فلسطين عربية من المي للمية.
كيف حق العودة؟
هذا نرمى على اليهود حجار ونذبح اليهود. إن نقتل اليهود وندافع عن وطننا.
لو شو ما يصير مش راح يصير سلام.
راح ناخذ حقنا والله ينتقم منهم إن شاء الله يموتوا كلهم.
And parents, if their child is killed in the service of that, that's a good thing.
It's encouraged in that society.
And your father was fine if you got killed in that service.
Well, this is practically what he did in real life. When he had to choose between the cause and his own son, who saved his own life. In fact, I sacrificed everything to save his life. And my reward was to be disowned, shunned, and he publicly stated that my blood is allowed. That was some 12 years ago. 12 years before I disowned him.
Well, next, what Mossab says, students protesting for Palestine need to know that just might surprise them. But first, as we go to break, more shocking words from the mouths of young Palestinians.
بيدرسوك عن المقاومة؟ شو بيقولوا لك؟
إنه إحنا لازم جميعنا نأيد المقاومة، والمقاومين هم اللي لازم يرجعوا لنا بلدنا، وهيك كل بتاخد بالقوة بيرجعش غير بالقوة.
أنا أقرأ اليهود.
يعني إنهم بيعلمونا بالمدرسة إنهم إرهابيين
إنهم هدول مش منيح وهدول بقتلوا قاعدين بشبابنا. إذا بطعن عمل عمليات الدهس.
Student organizations' reactions to the Hamas attack revealed a disturbing degree of ivy-covered intellectual rot. Americans nationwide have been appalled and shocked. The leadership of these supposedly highly sophisticated schools are so busy virtue signaling that words are violence, but violence, horrific, inhumane violence, is social justice, that they have forgotten it is their job to teach their students to think and to test reality. I was absolutely outraged about what was happening on college campuses, and I could not remain silent. I posted that message and more on social media. I'm here with Mossab Youssef, son of the Hamas co-founder. He turned his back on Hamas and is estranged from his family. He wrote a book, and here's what he says about these college protesters.
I love Hamas. I think Hamas.
Oh, you love a terrorist organization.
Sandwich.
Interesting. Harvard Square.
They should be all exterminated. And their
Alright.
kids, their mothers, their children, just like Hitler
Thank you.
did.
To all those students, I say that it's very disappointing to see Americans supporting Hamas and thinking that Hamas is a cool thing.
Israel, go to hell!
While Hamas does not respect any of those followers, while those followers don't know that Hamas would torture them and massacre them with no mercy, they call them useful idiots. They don't know that Hamas is a dark, black hole.
You guys are Nazis.
You're the one killing Jews.
Genocide.
You have no idea what you're talking about. I am being emotional. I have the right to be emotional because I speak on behalf of the children as a Palestinian child. Majority of people lack purpose. They want a cause, and without a cause, they don't exist.
You say that they're looked at by Hamas and the Palestinians as useful idiots. What do you mean by that?
I spent lots of time in Hamas prisons with other Hamas leaders and Hamas members from different districts. Then, most importantly, I worked with the Israeli intelligence and I had the honor to be a part of the counterterrorism unit. And I was born there and part of that culture, part of that religion. And I barely understood this monster. That's why I described it as black hole. Then some people hear about Hamas or they see an avatar of a Hamas fighter carrying a rifle, a freedom fighter, and they think it's a fancy idea, to support such a monster. This is why I call them idiots, absolutely idiots, because they don't know what they are supporting. They are supporting a monster that has been hijacking an entire society and endangering the entire Middle East, pushing the world towards a global war. Instead of condemning such a monster that they just committed ethnic cleansing against innocent people, then kidnapped hundreds of hostages, then used their own people as human shields. And none of those pro-Palestine people condemned Hamas up to this day. How long would it take them to realize that this is not only enemy of Israel, it's enemy of civilization? So when I see protesters on campuses like Harvard, of course I was outraged. I am still outraged. What's happening is insanity. Those pro-Palestine people need to go to a mental asylum.
I was indoctrinated to hate a lot of people. First and foremost, I was taught to hate myself. I was taught to hate Jewish people, that they are the enemies of Allah, and that the worst possible thing in the world to be is a Jew.
You're seeing what has been happening on college campuses everywhere. And joining me now are seniors from the University of Michigan, Selma and Zainab. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Anything you want to say in response to what's been said so far?
Well, absolutely. I believe that this conversation is being contextualized in the wrong way. I believe that it's being discussed under the notion that this is a religious war, that this is a conflict between Arabs and Jews, and that Hamas is central to Palestinian suffering or Palestinian resistance. And I think I want to give a bit more historical context of why we're actually fighting for Palestine. When we say that we're pro-Palestine, we're not advocating for any military group. We're advocating for the total liberation of all oppressed peoples.
I get the contextualization, but I also get a lot of buzzwords strung together. But I'm asking you what you think and you believe. Let's start with what happened on October 7th. Do you endorse that?
I reject the the premise of that question, because I don't believe that the person asking me that question has the moral authority to ask it until they first and foremost condemn the violent formation of Israel and the ensuing Palestinian deaths. And in fact, I find it unfair that advocates for Palestine are first forced to preemptively condemn acts of violence before their platform is considered legitimate. It plays into Islamophobic tropes.
The history actually shows that Palestinian leaders were very friendly with Hitler even before the reformation of the nation of Israel. And Arab violence caused the prohibition of Jewish immigration in the region long before the reformation of the nation of Israel. In fact, the Jerusalem quarter where the Jews were living was blown to bits before the formation of Israel. A few months later, as soon as the nation was formed, it was Arab countries that declared war on Israel, trying to wipe it out.
Islamophobic tropes.
Yes.
Well, let's just get down to right and wrong.
Okay.
And if you don't want to answer the question, that is an answer. Do you condemn what happened on October 7th?
Of course, we do not justify murdering any innocent civilians. But again, the framework of the question makes it seem as if the situation is the result only because of October 7th, when there have been several massacres for decades leading up to this. So when we have been the recipients of that violence and we are first asked to condemn violence, I find that there is a sense of hypocrisy in those questions when our suffering is not being recognized. And the first thing we're asked is to condemn.
What do you think Israel was going to do when Hamas cuts a hole in the fence and comes over the top and kills 1,300 people? What did you think they should have done?
I think they have every right to go in combat with Hamas, but I don't think they have the right for 92% of the death count to be civilians.
If they burn an infant in a crib, do you see that as a moral equivalent to a collateral death from a bomb being dropped as an act of war?
They have explicitly targeted civilian areas that have been marked as civilian areas. Israel has the registry for every person in Gaza.
And if that's where the enemy is hiding, do they have a right to attack them?
No, they do not have the right to kill.
There are some things that are just fundamental human decency. And when I ask you if what happened on October 7th is something you condemn, and you say, well, you have to look at that by looking at hundreds of years of conflict. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's either right or it's wrong, and it was wrong, and I don't need 100 years of conflict to know it was wrong.
The fact of the matter is that Hamas, yes, did take innocent life. Why did Hamas take away innocent life? Why was Hamas platformed? Why was Hamas funded? Why is Hamas empowered to take away innocent life?
And if that's where the enemy is hiding, do they have a right to attack them?
No, they do not have the right to kill.
Did you catch that? So their position is that if Israel wants to defend themselves, they are not allowed under any circumstances to kill any innocent civilians. But Hamas was specifically created and empowered for the specific task of killing innocent civilians. But let's not forget what she told Dr. Phil earlier when he asked her about October 7th.
Condemn what happened on October 7th.
Of course, we do not justify murdering any innocent civilians.
A few moments later.
Yes, did take innocent life. Why did Hamas take away innocent life? Why was Hamas platformed? Why was Hamas funded? Why is Hamas empowered to take away innocent life?
Let me tell you something. When somebody comes over a fence and goes into someone's house and burns their infant in its crib, I don't give a damn why they did it. It's wrong. I've read it that the charter of Hamas is to eliminate the Jewish race, beginning with Israel, but not stopping with Israel. wiping them off the face of the earth. Is that true?
This is true, but it does not end there. Now we have the problem of the pro-Palestine who are actually giving Hamas cover. They are participants in the crime. In fact, since October 7, I personally don't differentiate between Hamas and what's so-called Palestinians. Because actually there is no Palestinians. There are tribes. There is the tribe of Hamas, and there is the tribe of the Islamic Jihad, and there is the tribe of Khalil, and there is the tribe of Nablus. And each one has different interests, and all of them are conflicted. If they did not have Israel as the common enemy, they would kill each other. This is the reality of what's so-called Palestine.
Rhetoric?
You don't know what Palestine is. Actually, in fact, the keffiyeh that you are wearing, this is just a statement to show that you really lack the authenticity to represent the case. And what's so-called the cause, you know, this is a human problem.
So you just...
The cause must die. I think enough is enough. And now it's proven, and you are helping Hamas to prove it to the world that Palestine depends on the destruction of the state of Israel. And this is not acceptable, and we are not going to agree to it. And I tell you something, for the next 10 or 20 years, the Palestinian people will pay the bill that Hamas is caused today, and most likely in blood.
To you, Hamas and Palestinians are the same, they're one and the same?
After October 7, yes, there is no difference.
Really?
The vast majority of the Palestinian people support Hamas.
Really?
This is a fact. This is proven by statistics, and your silence now. You cannot even condemn Hamas and say that what they did on October 7 was an act of a savage group. You don't have that power.
Said I condemn.
On what authority do you speak? You only speak on the authority of Hamas propaganda.
No, why do you say that I'm speaking on the authority of Hamas propaganda?
Because if you were a decent human being, you can say that the thousands were killed on October 7. That was a crime against humanity. It was a genocide.
باقي اطلع في الجوال انا لقيت فيه رقم خاص. بعد شويه اتصل علي الرقم الخاص. اللي هو بيقول لي احنا المخابرات الاسرائيليه واحنا بدنا نضرب دار الجبري فاخلي لنا المنطقه والجيران يطلعوا كلهم. قلت له كله طالع كله مخلي كله ما فيش حدا فيه. قال لي لا اتاكد ثاني انه فيش حدا طالع.
Hamas, the group in control of Gaza, is preventing civilians from leaving their homes after the Israelis warned them of an impending strike. I also spoke with a civilian in Gaza City who confirmed this information. This is significant because the source indicated Hamas is threatening people and preventing them from leaving if they try to get to a safer location.
Wait, Trey, then all of these Palestinian people will die. Why would that be Hamas's goal?
الإسرائيلي معروف عنه أنه بحب الحياة. إحنا بنضحي نعتبر أنه قتلانا شهداء. فأمن يعني أهم أمنية عند أي واحد فلسطيني أنه يستشهد في سبيل الله دفاعا عن أرضه.
Hamas created a labyrinth of tunnels cutting under the suburbs and fired from concealed positions from within the population. The Israeli army warned inhabitants to leave. Hamas told them to stay put.
الجيش الإسرائيلي اتصل على التلفونات وقال اخلوا منطقة الشجاعية كلها الخط الشرقي واحنا الصحيح ما خليناش تمينا قاعدين لأنه في إذاعات إذاعة الأقصى إذاعة القدس ومش عارف إيش ما تخلوش هذه إشاعات هذه اسطوانات مرددة يعني ما تطلعوش من بيوتكم تمينا في بيوتنا لكن لما شفنا الدق جامد علينا من القذائف زي المطر صارت انجبرنا أن ندخل البيوت.
Next, the perils of reporting on radical Islam.
Armed Hamas men burst into the AP bureau in Gaza City and threatened the staff over a photograph.
Al Jadida School in central Gaza City.
RTV correspondent Harry Fear covered Gaza for 3 years. When he tweeted that Hamas was firing rockets from within civilian areas, he was expelled from the Gaza Strip.
me as a journalist, passionately connected to the civilians of Gaza, having worked there for 3 years, my primary allegiance is, admittedly, to the civilians of Gaza, because they're the ones that I have even personal connections with on an intimate level. However, I don't think there's any foreign correspondent who covered that summer conflict who didn't see prima facie war crimes committed by Palestinian militant groups. I don't think that's possible. It's not logistically possible. Rockets were being fired consistently from densely populated areas.
Okay, so we're witnessing something very, very unusual in this plot of land, abandoned plot of land right next to our hotel. A blue tent has come up. It wasn't there last night. It came up just this morning, and there have been 2 men moving in and out of it. Now, by reasonable doubt, it's fair to guess that this is a potential Hamas rocket launching site that's being set up.
The most obvious example is when the Indian television crew went into Gaza for a short period of time. They actually managed to set up a camera which captured Hamas militants, or certainly Palestinian militants, firing rockets from Palestinian territories next to prime civilian objects.
So that's the rocket being fired today morning, a day after it was assembled at the exact spot the rocket has been fired.
Okay, so we're not actually going in there because it's been rightly pointed out to us that there could be an immediate Israeli retaliation. But you can see very clearly this is a very, very dense residential and commercial area, and therefore firing the rocket from here will obviously have serious consequences for those who live here should Israel choose to retaliate.
They depicted that, and it was broadcast crucially when they left the Gaza Strip. Of course, they feared for their own safety, not necessarily from Hamas, but from perhaps vigilantes who would harm them if they were still in the Gaza Strip when that was broadcast. So you can see there is a pressure there on journalists, a downward pressure on their freedom of operation.
Indian television was one of the very few crews out of hundreds that showed Hamas rocket launches from within populated areas. Numerous Hamas rockets misfired, falling short into Gaza, killing civilians. Italian journalist Gabriele Barbati reported on such misfirings, but only after he exited Gaza. If Barbati reported from within Gaza, he feared Hamas would harm him.
We noticed there were some reports that came out concerning Hamas firing of rockets in Gaza City. What do you know about that?
What happened there, according to witnesses, is that basically, as it happened in the past, there was a misfire rocket, because among the hundreds of rockets that Hamas fired during the war, basically a good number just fell inside Gaza. And this time, witness said that a rocket misfired and fell on this playground in Shatikam, killing the kids who were there, and basically militants came just afterwards to clean the debris.
So now,
Hamas threatened journalists not to film any of their fighters during the war. That's why these militants are blurred.
Who were behind this particular activity.
Barbati's Italian colleague captured an unusual photo of a Hamas fighter.
Some Hamas militiamen fleeing the area with weapons, but disguised as women. And many colleagues of mine said, we don't want to publish this picture because we might have problem with Hamas.
It's a tough business to cover the Middle East. There's a lot of threats.
So we just decided, you know what, I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm giving this news tomorrow where I'm outside of here, just to be sure. So no danger to my life, no danger, no threat, just to be safe. At the end of the day, we are men before being reporters, so that was my calculation.
At one point during the war, the AP staff in the Associated Press bureau in Gaza City witnessed a rocket launch right outside the bureau and did not report it. At another point during the war, armed Hamas men burst into the AP bureau in Gaza City and threatened the staff over a photograph that an AP staffer had taken, and the AP didn't report it. So not only does Hamas know that it can successfully intimidate reporters into reporting the picture that Hamas wants, it knows that reporters will not report their own intimidation.
الو
كيفك؟
ايوه
بحكي معك ضابط عن الاندفاع الاسرائيلي. انا عشان املك وسلامتك بدي تنزل ضروري لاتجاه حان يونس.
لوين؟
لاتجاه حان يونس ضروري. انا بديش تخاطر حالك، فمن هيك بدي تنزل لاتجاه الجنوب لاتجاه حان يونس.
نسكر كل الطرق. طيب
يا عمي محل ما انت موجود فيه سكر. انت لازم وين سكر؟ مين سكر الطريق؟ حماس؟
صحيح.
ايش؟
ايوه صحيح.
وين سكروا الطريق؟
عن شارع صلاح الدين.
صلاح الدين؟
ايوه.
كيف سكروا الطريق؟
بوجهوا الناس، مش حد يطلع، ما عاد الناس بيطلعوا بوجهوهم.
اما شو يعني حطوا السيارات شو سووا؟
ايوه.
كيف بالضبط؟ فهمني. تفضل انت شو بتعمل؟
كيف؟ انت السيارات اللي بيطلعوا بوجهوهم بيقولوا يرجعوا.
اما كيف هم سكروا الطريق؟ فهمني.
يعني كيف بتلاقي ناس
هم يطلقوا نار على الناس اللي بدهم ينزلوا؟
ايوه.
انا عيطت عن حالي، خشيت جوا اليهود نزلوا، ما سالتك لو موتت مش مشكله، خشيت جوا طلعت هيك لقيت ابني، الاقتصاد تبعه ما اعرفه انا لقيت اليهود لما ميت، وكل يوم بروح على التريم برجعوا الاولاد خايفين، في الاخر انا عيطت عن حالي، خشيت جوا اليهود نزلوا، ما سالتك لو موتت مش مشكله، خشيت جوا طلعت هيك لقيت ابني، الاقتصاد تبعه ما اعرفه انا لقيت اليهود.
Palestinians took all the bodies they could. The only bodies we found were in the burned houses, and some of the bodies had no heads. They cut the heads and took the heads with them. So I think to myself, what kind of human being would want to take somebody's head and what? Keep it in the living room? Are these the people I supported? Are these the people that I wanted to help? These are people who want peace, prosperity, want a beautiful garden. So it's very heartbreaking to think that these actions are so non-human, below any moral behavior that one could expect from anybody, even if it's your enemy.
Hamas's prime goal is to establish Islamic rule in all of Palestine, including Israel. Our Palestinian team poses as local media and interviews Hamas leaders. Reassured they are speaking only to their own, they describe Hamas's true strategic goal: an apocalyptic war against Jews.
هو الصراع وجود أو لا وجود.
It's either us or them.
لا تعامل مع اليهود إطلاقا.
No dealings with the Jews.
وهذا ما نص عليه القرآن.
I don't need the Quran to see their evil.
استراتيجية وسياسة
And I say,
ودينيا.
it's either us or them.
وجود أو لا وجود بيننا وبينهم.
They believe that apocalyptic war will be ushered in with the second coming of the Christian Son of God, Jesus Christ. But according to Hamas's version, Jesus does not return as a savior. He will come here to the holy Islamic shrines in Jerusalem, revered as a radical Islamic holy advocate.
Jesus and his faithful Muslims from the Al-Aqsa Mosque will come out and chase the Antichrist to the gates of Lud, as said in the Hadith. So Jesus will kill the Antichrist, so Jews will be separated and will hide between stones and trees. And then the stones and trees will call out, "O Muslim, O servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him."
دينيا الآية رقم 21 من سورة المائدة تثبت أن بني إسرائيل لهم الحق في الأرض المقدسة. قال الله تعالى: وإذ قال موسى لقومه يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم. إذن الله كتبها لهم ولم يكونوا كيانا غاصبا لها. الكيان الغاصب هو من كان فيها قبل أن يدخلها بني إسرائيل. وبالتالي أنا لا أميل إلى الشعارات والعبارات والمفردات التي عفى عليها الزمن مثل كيان غاصب وصهيوني وغيره. ولا ينفي أنني عربي اعترافي بإسرائيل أبدا. أنا أعترف بإسرائيل أنها دولة وحقيقة واقعة، ولكن لا أنكر عروبتي ولا أنكر انتمائي للدول العربية.
أنا ما أعرف يعني، شوف خلينا نحدد إطار الموضوع. القضية الفلسطينية عموما واحتلال فلسطين، هل هو قضية عربية ولا قضية دينية؟
ليس هناك احتلال، ليس هناك احتلال، هناك شعب عاد إلى أرضه الموعودة. هل تعرف تاريخ بني إسرائيل؟ ضارب في القدم، وتاريخ بني إسرائيل قبل الإسلام، وبالتالي يجب أن نعترف ونحن مسلمين أن بني إسرائيل لهم الحق في هذه الأرض ولم يغتصبوها. الذي يقول أنها مغتصبة هم الذين.
Is the Palestinian crisis a land dispute, in your opinion?
No, I don't think so at all. It's a religious issue, and I asked it's mainly when you see the whole Palestinian issue, their problem is they don't want Jews to survive there. So if all Jews became Muslims one day, they will have no problem with that. So the issue with them is Jews. I asked one day a friend of mine, if all Jews converted to Islam in Israel, will you still have this fight and trouble? He said, of course not. I said to him, then this is not a problem of a land. It's a problem just because they are Jews. So, and when you listen to the Arab media, when you follow the Arab media, when you follow the people who are, it's all about religious war against the Jews, and they wanted to take it further to apply the prophecies that Muslims will slaughter and kill every Jew in the world. This is one of the prophecies in some book called Al-Bukhari. It's not in the Quran, but it's in a book called Al-Bukhari that's well respected by many Muslims as a source of hadith book for the words of Prophet Muhammad, and there is this what they dream about is to fulfill this prophecy of killing every Jew there. So the problem here is in my, it's not a view. When you listen to the mosques, when you listen to the sermons, when you see the media, how they incite hatred and violence against people just because they are Jews. So you will realize that it's not a land dispute.
And what if America pushes Israel to concede land and to establish?
This will encourage the jihadists more and more in their path. In fact, America should do the opposite. When the jihadists attacked America in September 11, they wanted to see these concessions happening. And if you showed them concessions, they will just attack you again. As when you were weak in 1998 and you didn't respond strongly enough against the attack on your embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, they attacked you again, and it was stronger. But when you went very hard on them, they haven't attacked you for years, and because they are afraid of you. So the jihadist mind is a different mind. You have to show them that what they want to achieve, they are getting the opposite. So if they are expecting you to do pressure on Israel, for example, to do concessions to them, then in fact you do the opposite of this, and this will give them a lesson. Don't attack us again, because we will not surrender to you, and we will do the opposite of what you want. So they feel they are losing, not gaining by their attacks. This is the message that you have to convey to them, and so to change their mind and to make them think twice.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير.
أشكيك إلى الله يا حماس، حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
تتابع أجهزة وزارة الداخلية والأمن الوطني.
خلاص
ما يحدث قاس جدا في غزة، ولكن والله لو أنه دخول الجبهة كاملة بلبنان الآن سيوقف المجازر في غزة لدخلت الجبهة، ولكن لا يوجد أي سيناريو عسكري يضمن تدمير كامل سلاح الجو الإسرائيلي والسلاح الجو الأمريكي ووقف المجازر في غزة. فتخاف أنت أن تذهب إلى حرب الآن كاملة وكبيرة وواسعة بدل أن تكون المجازر في غزة تحدث المجازر أيضا في لبنان وب10 أضعاف.
تفتح لهم فرصة ربما.
ولذلك يجب الصبر، وإن كان هذا الصبر على مضض ومن دم، وكان الوقت فعلا من دم، ولكن هي معركة فتحتها غزة وتتحمل ضريبتها أعانها الله. وأنا أصلا من غزة ولا أتحدث يعني تنظيرا، بل أتحدث بعقل وعاطفة وكل قلبي هناك. ولكن يجب فقط أن نهدأ قليلا ونذهب إلى هذه الحرب حرب انتصار وليست حرب انتحار.
يا سيدي الأهم هو الرؤية والهدف التي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أذن للذين
ما السعودية ما بقى شيء ما أعطتكم إياه، حتى دولة أسست لكم دولة. الملك فهد يوم ريغان يطلب منه تمويل سوار الكونترا قال له وحدة بوحدة أبي دولة لفلسطين، قال له أبشر، ووقع الخطاب دولة لفلسطين. وعلم الملك فهد عرفات أنه حصلنا دولة فلسطينية. هرب عرفات ما شافوه إلا بعد 10 سنين من هالكلام هذا. هرب ما يبي دولة فلسطينية. كلكم ما تبون دولة فلسطينية لأن أساسا ما لكم قضية ولا لكم دولة ولا لكم أرض. هذه أرض إسرائيل بالقرى، وأنتم شتات رومان ملفقين، مغول وتركمان وشركس وأرمن وغجر. ما لكم حق بفلسطين. فلسطين هذه دولة إسرائيلية لبني إسرائيل. وبني إسرائيل لمعلوميتكم، بني إسرائيل هذولا عيال إسحاق، وحنا يا العرب عيال إسماعيل. وإسحاق وإسماعيل أخوين، أبوهم إبراهيم عليه السلام، يعني هذولا عيال عمنا. لكن أنتم منين جيتوا؟ أنتم وش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ أنتم يا الشتات يا الغجر يا المغول يا التركمان يا الشركس يا الرومان يا بقايا الشعوب. إيش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ إيش دخلكم بالسالفة؟ إيش دخلكم بيننا؟ هذا بني إسرائيل على أرضهم، ما لكم أرض أنتم ولا لكم قضية يا جماعة. أنتم أدوختونا واشغلتونا. والأقصى، الأقصى لمعلوميتكم ما عندكم أقصى، ما في شيء اسمه أقصى، في شيء اسمه القدس. المسجد الأقصى اللي ورد ذكره هو بالجعرانة 29 كيلو على الطائف، وكان المسجدين، المسجد الأقصى والمسجد الأدنى. المسجد الأقصى حقكم بناه الشام عام 72 هجري. كيف يسرى محمد له وهو مبني عام 72 للهجرة؟ يعني بعد وفاة محمد ب60 سنة. تضحكون على مين أنتم؟ تضحكون على مين؟ الفلسطيني أنت ما أنت عربي ولا لك أرض ولا لك قضية. الأرض أرض إسرائيل والقضية قضية إسرائيل معكم. كان إسحاق شامير ورابين وشارون وجولدا مائير والثاني والله ما ادري شو اسمه، هذول كانوا ابطال، تدري ولا لا؟ لكن نتنياهو جبان، لان نتنياهو ما حرككم، ما ادري وش يبي بهالاسلحه مكدسها عنده. يا ادمي يا نتنياهو احرق هالعصابات هذه وهالشتات وهالملفقين وريح نفسك وريح العالم منهم وريحنا احنا منهم. ليش مخليهم؟ ليش فتح لهم الحدود يهاجرون؟ ان راحوا للاردن سووا ويلول الاسود، وان راحوا للكويت انهبوه يوم صدام احتله، انهبوا يلبسون لبس الجيش العراقي وينهبون. الخسه والنذاله والحقاره ما يتركونها، هذه تربيتهم وهذا دمهم وهذا عرقهم. ليش ما تريح العالم منهم يا نتنياهو اذا انت رجال وبطل؟ ها؟ الله يلعنكم ويلعن حتى نتنياهو اللي ما خلصنا منكم. لان نتنياهو تارك لكم الحبل على الغارب. والمفروض نتنياهو هو اللي يأدبكم وهو اللي يخلص العالم من شروركم. أنتم شر في أي دولة تحطون فيها يا الفلسطينيين، شر منزل ولا بكم رجل. أنا مستعد أنام عند يهودي ولا أنام عند فلسطيني. أنا مستعد أقلط يهودي في بيتي وأغديه وأوكله وشربه ورقده، ولا أدخل فلسطيني في بيتي. والسلام.